Hashem, let's now start to study the section of the Haggadah called Koreich. Koreich, and big part of that is Zecher Mikdash Kehilel. So first we'll read the text, and then we'll get into it. So as a background, Koreich means like to wrap, like a sandwich. So a person is supposed to, according to the Shulchan Aruch, take the third matzah. Oh, Eliezer, we're studying. Join us here. We're studying the Haggadah. No, the Haggadah over here. Are you looking for a sitter? All right. So a person is supposed to take the third matzah and break off from it a kazayas, an olive-sized amount, and then he should wrap that with an olive-sized amount of the myrrh, and he should say Zecher Mikdash Kehilel. This is what was done in the time of Hillel, and he would eat them. Here, take a Haggadah, Aryeh, and he would eat them together while reclining. And you don't need to swallow it all together, but rather you have to, you just need to put it in your mouth at the same time, but you don't need to swallow it all together. According to the Shulchan Aruch, you should also dip the maror into the, you should also have, according to Shulchan Aruch, when you have the matzah and the maror, you need one other thing. You're supposed to dip it into the charoses. The Ramah writes that it's not the custom to do that, to dip it in. And later authorities write that we're supposed to follow the Shulchan Aruch here and dip it in. Nevertheless, and you have to follow your custom. So another concern here is that when you say Zecher, we're studying the part of that Haggadah called Koreich. You're familiar with that part? So basically, during the Seder, you're supposed to take, right before you eat your meal, you're supposed to take a matzah, break off a piece of the matzah, and mix it up with maror. And now we see, according to most, dip it in charoset. And then you're supposed to say, this is what we've done, Zecher and Mikdash, we're remembering the temple, like Hillel did. And we'll get into that. So we'll read from the text of the Talmud about that in a little bit. So some are concerned that this will make a hefsek or an interruption between the blessings and the eating. So maybe you should do it after the eating. But we don't say a bracha. We just do it. We've already said the bracha on matzah. We've already said the bracha on maror. So anyway. Okay, so what's the basis for this? The Gemara in Psachim 115a says that Hillel would wrap the matzah and the maror together. And some also say there that he would also wrap the paschal lamb with them and eat them together. As it states, Al matzot u'marorim yochlu. But the Chachamim argued with him and they said, you should eat it and not yochlu, meaning to say, you should eat each one by itself. So this is a fundamental dispute. The Hillel said you're supposed to eat the matzah with the maror, and the rabbi said you're supposed to eat them independently. The Rashbam says there's a dispute. Do the rabbis say you have to eat it separately, or you're also allowed to eat it separately? Even according to Hillel, who says you're supposed to wrap them together, nowadays, where there's no Beit HaMikdash and the mitzvah of maror is only rabbinic, you can't wrap them together because then what's going to, hey, how you doing? We have a big problem if you wrap the matzah and the maror together. Huge problem. Here, have Haggadah. I hold on, let me pause this for a second. Nowadays, where the matzah is a biblical obligation and the maror is rabbinic, you can't eat the maror with the matzah because if you do that, you're basically nullifying the taste of the matzah in your mouth. Because you can't, at the Seder, can you take matzah and just like add sugar and cream cheese to the matzah to Seder and use that to fulfill the mitzvah. No, you have to eat just matzah. So you can't do it biblically. So the only reason why we're doing it today is so first you eat the matzah by itself, and then you eat the maror by itself. Well, first you eat the matzah according to Hillel, then you eat the matzah with the maror to fulfill this mitzvah. So the Gemara has this discussion. The Gemara doesn't say if the law is like Hillel or like the Chachamim. And so therefore we do both. We eat matzah by itself, maror by itself, and matzah and maror together. Because we're not sure who we rule like. Is the halacha you're supposed to eat them separately or eat them together? There's to me, and we can look at the commentaries on this, but it's very symbolic when you have the matzah and the maror together. What's the idea? Matzah represents redemption, the bread of redemption. Maror represents affliction. So what's the idea of putting them together, Eliezer? Why would you put the redemption with the affliction together? That's Hillel's position. What would be the idea behind that? That to teach us that you need the affliction to get the redemption. You can't get the redemption without first having the affliction. You can't get to the stage of redemption without first having the affliction in your life. But that's one way to do it, and I really like the Eliezer's answer a lot. But I was also thinking of something else, that when that okay, I'm going to need your help to explain this to me. But what I was thinking is that it's often the case that redemption and affliction are simultaneous. That when we're having the challenges, when we're having challenges or affliction, to recognize it also as redemption. And the way I can understand this is in Israel right now, they're definitely being afflicted. There's the rockets coming down, but it's also redemption because finally, after all these years, there's this, this reckoning for Iran, which has been, nobody stood up to it for years. They were the bully and nobody challenged it. So at the same moment that there's the affliction, there's also the redemption. And maybe that's the message. Message is that we have to, that in our moments of affliction, we should also recognize them as redemptive moments, but also as redemption. We shouldn't get too arrogant. We should also see that with every redemption, there's also affliction. There's losses and pain. And so that's this combination of putting the hard times and the good times together and observing it. Yeah, Viva.
They were redeemed, they were being redeemed, but they also felt them and they were afflicted by.
Exactly right. That by exactly right. While they were being redeemed, they also felt afflicted. Beautiful answer. I never thought about it like that, but it's exactly right. Exactly right. Okay, and then
I was just going to.
Yeah, hold on, Rabbi Yosef. I want everybody to hear what Rabbi Yosef has to say. Yes, Rabbi Yosef.
You told us a lot of times about the experiencing the happiness of the mitzvot because it's something new for us to be always free and always happy and always rich and all that. We won't feel it the same way. But also, like if technically Hashem even shortened he made the shiabud harder in order to shorten the time that he promised Avram. But technically speaking, he could have canceled the whole thing completely, right? He could have said,
Hashem could do
right
anything.
mission and right. So, but that wouldn't have worked. We would have all fallen apart because we didn't feel the togetherness. We would have never.
So that's another point that he's saying. It has to be together in a sandwich to feel the unity, to feel. So that's a third idea. Now we're saying a third idea. Let me just flesh it out. The third idea is that some people are experiencing redemption and others are experiencing affliction. And the concept is that we all have to be together in a sandwich. That the ones who are, this is what Rabbi Yosef is saying, that the ones who are achieving redemption should recognize the affliction, and the ones who are undergoing the affliction should be pulled along by the people who are having the redemption and thereby lifted up. So we've said three things now. I want to just write it down so I don't forget it. Yeah, we said three things. We said what Eliezer said, that the affliction leads to redemption. This doesn't work.
Another way of putting it is going to pay your dues.
Affliction leads to redemption. The number two answer was that they are all, affliction and redemption are often simultaneous, or sometimes simultaneous. And then the third thing we were saying, what Rabbi Yosef was saying, is that it's a sandwich to remind us to keep it all together, to bring us together, to remind us, a sandwich, to remind us that we're together. So let me repeat this again. From the beginning, we have an obligation to eat the matzah and the maror, right? We have an obligation to eat matzah and maror, but the Talmud has a dispute. Is it matzah by itself and maror by itself, or is it them together? And that's Hillel in Psachim 115a says to eat them together, whereas the rabbis say separately. So Hillel did this to remember the temple. And what's the concept there? So why are we eating it together? So we suggested today three reasons why we're eating the matzah and the maror together. And this is what we came out of our study so far. The one answer is from Eliezer, the second answer is from Aviva, and the third answer is from Rabbi Yosef. From Eliezer saying that we put the matzah and the maror together in a sandwich. Matzah represents redemption and maror represents pain. And so it's teaching us that the pain is often a necessary step for the redemption. Redemption isn't easy. It's not free. It requires pain and suffering to get to a state. And here too, as Am Yisrael right now is in a war, and they're living in bomb shelters and residential buildings are being attacked, all of Medinat Yisrael was built upon years of pain and sacrifice to get to this stage. So that's the first idea. Affliction leads to redemption. Hello, Dan. How you doing? Good. A second concept is that the affliction and redemption can be simultaneous. That while we're being afflicted, we also have redemption. Meaning to say, and while we have redemption, we also have affliction. And probably the best example of that is Israel. Today, Israel, even with all the struggles and the pain that's going on, I speak to my friends in Israel, and they're living in bomb shelters. None of them would leave. They don't want to leave. They're feeling like they're in a redeemed state. So the affliction and redemption is simultaneous, that you can feel afflicted and feel redeemed at the same time. And then, so that's Israel. And then the third step is And the third step was what Rabbi Yosef said, and that's that affliction and redemption is together in a sandwich. And the concept there is that the people who are, let's say, feeling redeemed have to be together with the people who are in need of a lift, who are in being afflicted, and to lift them up and to get them to pull them back to a more redeemed state. Whereas the people who are redeemed should also be aware that it's a very, very close path to go from being redeemed to being moral. And this is the concept of Koreich according to Hillel. This is why it says Zecher Mikdash Hillel. Hillel reminds us. It says Zecher Mikdash Hillel, remembrance of the temple Hillel. This is ironic also because the term Zecher Mikdash, remember the temple. This could be a happy term or a sad term. How so? We could remember the temple in its glorious days, and thereby it's happy, or we can remember the Churban, remember the destruction. So this is the duality of what's in front of us. We have the matzah, which remembers the redeemed state, and the maror, which remembers the bitterness. Anyway, this is just a little bit of a discussion of it. We'll see what the commentaries say in a moment. But let me first go through some of the laws about the Koreich. So you put how do you put the Koreich? You put the maror between two pieces of matzah. Some say that there's another way to do it, that you would wrap the maror around the matzah, that you put the lettuce around the matzah. This is clearly the case. This Koreich certainly makes sense, not with our hard shmur matzah, but with a softer type of matzah. You can't, because you try making a sandwich, it doesn't work with the hard matzah. It really only works with the softer matzah. Then it's a wrap.
What if you're using the actual horseradish?
So then you put it in. It's okay. You can put it in.
You put it on. So the white actual looks like a wrap.
Yeah. So then you put it on. Yeah, but it's
can't wrap matzah.
No, that can't wrap around the matzah. No, but I'm saying that this whole thing makes more sense if the matzah is soft, then it becomes a wrap. But if it's hard, like Ashkenazim do, then it's hard.
You could take a piece of the horseradish that sliced off and wrap it around a small piece of
You could do it theoretically, yeah. You could like thinly slice the horseradish. Yeah. That would be nice. That'd be a nice shtick to add.
Off the record, I'll say, Rabbi, that's part of the affliction. Then we have hard matzah.
No, I love the hard matzah. We should mail it to Canada, but I don't think it'll get through. I don't think.
But I'm just like in the time of the Mikdash, it was alafa, and
Well,
it was a real shawarma with the actual lamb, with the chazaret of whatever form maror, and the wrap. The matzah was you were holding it together like a sandwich.
Of course, yes, of course. Okay, let's read this phrase, this paragraph that we're supposed to say. Is a dispute. Do we say it before we eat it or after we eat it? Because before we eat it, if it's the maror, you're interrupting the maror. But anyway, so but our practice is to say it before we eat it. And what is the phrase we say? We say this paragraph: Zecher mikdash kehillel. We remember the temple like Hillel, and this is what Hillel did. Kain asa Hillel bizman shebeit hamikdash hayakayim. When the temple was standing, hayakoreich. Now, there's a dispute in the Talmud. Did he also wrap the Pesach? That's how we have it in the parentheses. Whether or not he also put the Pesach in there, or if he just put the matzah and maror, he would put them in together. He would eat them together to fulfill the phrase amatzos umerorim yochul. On matzos and maror they shall eat it. Okay, so let's look at the commentary of the Koreich and see what kind of questions do people maybe have about this Koreich. What kind of questions we have about the Koreich? So let me pull this up. Let's see. Let's see what they have here. Hold on 1 second. Okay, here, Koreich. So again, there's a lot that we said. What blessing, when Hillel would wrap them together, what blessing did he make? Because did he make the blessing on the matzah or the maror? So the Rambam says that he would make a blessing on the eating of matzos and merorim, on eating of matzos and maror, which is a bracha we don't say. The Aruch writes he would make the blessing on matzah and then a separate blessing on the maror.
We've already made the blessing on the matzah.
No, but Hillel didn't do that. Hillel only did it together. Yeah, he didn't. He did it separately. He did it together. Now, he did it together. So when did Hillel eat this sandwich? How you doing, Ezra? When did he eat it? So the Chidush Aran writes that Hillel would fulfill his obligation of eating matzah and maror when he ate it together with the Paschal lamb. And he for sure didn't eat it until the end of the meal because he ate it with the Paschal lamb, which he ate on a full stomach. And so therefore, at the beginning of the meal, he ate, according to Chidush Ran, he ate matzah shira, which is what we call like matzah with apple juice or matzah with eggs. So this was only after he was totally full, because when they're Seder, they would eat the matzah, the maror, and the Pesach after they ate a full meal. Not like us today, where we don't eat it until the meal. The reason why we don't eat the meal until after the Seder is probably, my guess would be, was we tried to do that. That's what they did back then. We tried to do it, and then everybody left before the discussion. So then the rabbi said, so we have to do it the reverse, because they know if we serve the food first, everybody will be out of here, right? So the rabbis were no dummies, obviously. Oh, Shep. So Tosfos writes that he gets at the whole thing. So yeah, that's the question. Okay. So now they go into Dan's question. Doesn't matter which type of maror that you use for maror and for Koreich. So there's different practices here. That this is very interesting. Now, Arizal had the practice, I never realized this, till this exact moment. I'm 51 years old, and in my life, I never realized this till this exact moment. We are breaking news here. Breaking news. Who wants to hear the breaking news? That the Arizal, the great Kabbalist, says that they have the custom, hello, Michael, people have the custom on the basis of Arizal to take for the Koreich, for the sandwich, specifically a different maror than the maror that they made the blessing on first, because these are two different things. So that's why some have the custom to take two different types of maror. But that's not the way the Chai Adam says. He says, no, there's no distinction. You should use the same, and you can use multiple different types of maror. That's why, that's actually my custom, is that we use both marors. And we use the romaine lettuce and the horseradish at the same time. But really, that should be a problem, because we're not sure which one is which. Then by eating each one, you could be canceling out the flavor of the other one. So maybe you shouldn't, maybe you should eat each one separately. The Chai Adam says that you could even take them all together and fulfill your obligation. And then he says, that which people have the practice to take to take leaves from myrrh, i.e., like the Roman lettuce, that's because it's easier to eat, or maybe it's the Hidur mitzvah. It's a Hidur mitzvah. So anyway, there's a whole discussion here. Well, I guess to summarize, I guess we'll stop here. But first, to summarize, we'll say that the concept of the Koreich is this concept of putting together the matzah, which is the bread of redemption, and the myrrh, which represents affliction, and putting them together in one sandwich. That's what Hillel did. And Hillel knew what he was doing because he was remembering the temple. And when you remember the temple, you have to remember the affliction that we no longer have it, but also remember the joy of the temple, the merit that we had. And so therefore, we saw three ideas here, that affliction is what leads to redemption, that the idea that the affliction and the redemption are often simultaneous, and also the third idea that if we're feeling redeemed, we should look to help people who are feeling afflicted. And if we're feeling afflicted, we should be striving for the redemption. So this is the concept of the Koreich, and tomorrow we'll take up another aspect of the Haggadah, but now Daven Mincha at this time. Baruch Hashem.